Hey, what's going on? It's your boy E. Jones, bottom to the top hoops. Here with the director, the producer, Mr. Everything, the Black Elvis.
Thank you, man. What's up, E?
Oh man, just excited about another episode, another installment of that bottom to the top hoops.
We working.
Getting right to it. So without further ado, man, check out this dope interview.
Let's give a shout out to PRPS Clothing.
PRPS, appreciate you. This interview is being brought to you by MMCC, Montefiore Medical Center. Make sure you go check it out. Bottom to the top hoops, Black Elvis, E. Jones. Hey, what's going on? This is E. Jones, bottom to the top hoops, here with Jay David, New York Jayhawks. Man, quick ascension into local and national prominence with you guys, obviously, with some really high-level athletes that you've been able to produce in a very short period of time. So I want to get into the story about, obviously, the program, how you got involved, obviously, you know, your history. So just people understand, because I've read many things about how you got into it, but just giving you a chance to kind of tell your story. So originally from Queens, New York.
Yes, sir. Queens Village is where I spent most of my time. We lived in Laurelton for a long period of time. Went to St. Clair's my middle school years.
Okay.
My mother moved out to Long Island like right around 8th grade, and I was getting in a lot of trouble. And she said, and she sent me up to
like a lot of us, right?
and she sent me up to military school. So I spent most of my formative years of high school up in Cornwall.
So now the introduction to military school for your mom to say, hey, this is what you're going to do. Obviously, she wanted to get you on the right path to make sure that you was going to be a responsible young adult. How was the reception of that to be able to say the military school coming from Queens Village?
Yeah.
Like, how does that work?
Nah, it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me.
At first?
Never.
Okay.
At first, it really wasn't for me.
Okay.
I was 13, 14 years old. I thought I was tough. You know, get up there and you find out you're not tough.
Okay.
Very quickly. You know what I'm saying? I was always able to handle myself, but like you know, my dad used to always say there's always someone bigger, tougher, and stronger than you.
Right.
So me and my dad it was tough for us because we were so close to be separated at that point in time. You know,
yeah, those are very impressionable years for a young man, especially that influence of a male figure in your life. So now, how does that dynamic change with you and your dad going into that situation?
So like, he would always come up. I still have my parents. My parents been married 39 years. So I'll be 40 September 12th. But,
big one, man.
Yeah, big one coming.
Let me know about the celebration. Okay.
So, you know, he was good with coming up and seeing me and stuff like that. My mother, on the other hand, was really, really strict. She's still strict to this day. Probably one of the toughest people I've ever met in my life. She just was like, yo, you gotta go and you gotta figure it out. You know? And that's what I did. Then I took into basketball. Got pretty decent there. The person, he passed away, may he rest in peace, his name was Leslie McMillan.
Okay.
He took me in, so I wouldn't have to really come home sometimes and stuff. And when I did come home, my mother would send me to Haiti. So those were my summers.
So your descent is from Haitian descent and Dominican?
Yeah.
Okay. So did you ever spend any time in DR in the summers or anything?
A little bit
that?
when I was younger, when I was a lot younger. I haven't been back to either place since early teen years.
You know, I think it's very interesting with the fact that, you know, you have this multicultural background and you got those experiences to be able to see New York City, to be able to see Cornwall, to be able to see DR, Haiti. That formulates the total person.
Yeah.
And you got a wider lens to be able to say, you know what, these are the things that the barrio looks like in DR.
Yeah.
This is what it looks like in Cornwall, in the suburban area at a military school. So now, in terms of being able to be a responsible adult, regardless of where you are, you're still getting a broad scope of how life works.
Right. And it allows me to deal with different people in different type of ways, and understand and have a little bit more empathy, which I really didn't have until I had my daughter, but you're able to reach back into those lessons to really be able to speak to different people and be able to maneuver a different type of way. Definitely,
man. So now, what is the transition from going to military school? Was it a big sense of accomplishment to know that you weren't open to that, and then being able to get through, graduate, and then move on to college? What was that feeling like? Or was it like the shackles are loose, I can go out and do my thing?
No, it was a little different. I graduated high school at 17, and I went on to University of Massachusetts in Amherst. And I was there for a little bit, but you're still you leave that structure and then you go into a university setting.
Freedom.
Freedom from your parents, freedom from Coach McMillan, who is a heavy-handed man. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Different, and you
Probably a lot of where you are right now. For
Yes.
those
Right.
younger teachings.
Exactly. So then you go to away to college, and you kind of like engulf yourself into everything else, as opposed to academically and what you should be doing. So I just felt like when I got to UMass, I wasn't prepared to go to college. And I remember Coach McMillan and his wife Barbara talking to my mom and saying, "Hey, you should do another year of high school," because I was 17 at the time, and neither one of them felt like, neither one of them felt I was ready to go into
socially, maturity wise.
Period. Like so my dad was cool with it. My mother was like, "Nah, we don't do that," because in her eyes, I was getting left back. So how do you explain to your family
traditional mindset?
Exactly. So she was like, "Nah, you gotta go to school." So I go to school. I don't really do too well academically. Then my great grandmother passed away. She was the one that raised us when we were in Haiti a lot with all of my cousins. So that one took a toll on me. And then I had a friend of mine that got shot, and that took another toll on me. So I'm like, "Yo, I just want to go home." Came home, went to National Community College a little bit, got a little job there. Met with Coach AJ Wanders, who I was around the basketball program there.
Okay.
Still was playing. Then I tore my ACL.
Okay.
Right? And I'm like,
I've been there.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not really, I was really good in high school. Hudson Valley, all New England. At that time, it was 4 classes, and I was good, but I wasn't like that.
Right.
I was always
good
smart.
mid-level player.
Yeah, I was always smart. Maybe D2 kid, but I was always really smart. So then I'm like, all right, let me figure out what I'm gonna do with work, school, and stuff like that.
So now you bring up a very interesting point that a lot of people have problems coming to terms with.
Yeah.
That transitionary moment, whether it happens in high school, it happens in college, to say, man, what am I really doing with this? Where am I taking this? Do I want to be a pro? Can I be a pro? People are passing me. My skill set's not transitioning. Like, let me just use the game for what I can get out of it and make it a bridge.
Right.
And just mentoring kids, do you find now that your situation is very beneficial to be able to share that information from a personal perspective?
It is now, because the one thing that a lot of kids don't have these days, which I'm trying to give, is that foundation. So everything that we've spoken about so far, I was able to go back to that foundation. That foundation my parents gave me. So that allowed for me to be able to progress and move forward and things like that, and be able to make a decision and say, what am I going to do with basketball? Because I'm not going to play in the NBA, I'm not going to play overseas, but there are so many other things that I can do to figure that out.
So where does because from the information that I got, you started coaching in college.
Yes.
Right. You got pulled in by your uncle.
Yep.
Now, how does that talk to me about how that worked? Like, you're coaching, or hey Jay, you want to coach? Like, how does that happen?
So we're going through some stuff. I'm in PA school at the time. Actually, right before my post-bac. I did post-bac, which was all math and science classes. Right. So I do the post-bac. I get into PA school. Going through some stuff, and my uncle's like, "Hey, I have this program. It's back home. Why don't you come and work it out?"
Where are you in school at this time?
I'm at Toro College doing a post-bac.
Where's Toro?
Toro College is in Bayshore, Atlanta.
Okay, got it.
Literally, it has some of the best medical programs in the country.
Okay.
So that's what I was there for. Literally, that entire time I was there, it was math, science, nothing else. That's really all it was.
Right.
So I do that, get into PA school. It's like, hey, we have this, come in and do this with us. So I'm like, all right, cool. He said you can help mentor kids. My nephew was there. My cousin, his son was there. So we start doing it. We're getting punched around, but it's okay because we're helping kids.
Right.
So that's how really I got re-indoctrinated into that. At the same time, I'm still learning what the new culture is. You know what I'm saying? Like
AAU.
Yes.
High school at the time.
Yeah.
How to deal with this different level of kids, the Generation X kids, right? So it's really interesting from a perspective of me going through the same process that you went through, working with kids and trying to coach, teach, and mentor. How did you find it in terms of being able to communicate, connect, and try to lead kids to what you wanted them to do, as opposed to what their goals were or what they saw for themselves, when it kind of wasn't on the same path?
It was really I had to learn by trial and error, and I think that's where I was able to get a lot of it. At the time,
Bumps in the road, probably.
a lot of bumps in the road, learning how to deal with the young men, giving them a voice. I'm a military background, so everything I'm doing is so I'm on top and I'm screaming. And
It's structured.
Yes.
It has to be on time.
Right.
It has to be this way. Why do you have your shirt out of your pants?
all of that.
Why run off the court?
Exactly.
You answer yes, coach. That's what it is.
So at the beginning of it, I was still behaving as a
You were
pro.
heavy-handed like your coach
you know what I'm
was,
saying?
right?
But as you start to move and grow, you start to understand that there's a time for that, and you can still get through to those kids. Most of our kids need a voice. You need to let them speak so they can feel like they're letting it out, and at the same time you're grooming them. Most of this, the work stuff, the part of it, Chad Babel, right now he does made hoops and stuff like that. He was at Hoop Group doing recruiting. And he was like, yo, you want to bring your guys down to camp? I'm like, yeah. He was like, yo, you can work. So that's why I always give him shouts, you know what I'm saying, to this day. So he was like, yo, you can work the camp. Changed my life. Because so when I get to the camp, I was at Hoop Group, is the name of the camp. I was at Hoop Group. Hoop Group teaches you how to work hard, how to network, how to speak to people, how to coach, all that stuff that I had no idea about. So basketball players think that they could be a coach just because they play basketball. And it's wrong. You can't be a coach just because you play basketball. You know how to play, but you still have to know how to coach. Hoop Group teaches you how to coach, teaches you how to work hard, teaches you how to network, teaches you how to, just so many other things that I didn't have. Right?
So you started to become a more well-rounded coach outside of just the X and O and the game tactics.
So when you go to Hoop Group, you coach 3 games a day, you ref 3 games a day. So you learn how to ref, you learn how to coach. You get up in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, and you get in the early birds with the kids. Now you're learning drills. You're learning more than just 3-man weaves. You learn how to teach. You learn footwork. You learn all that stuff that you thought you knew, but you don't know how to teach and articulate.
And the new age of how this is working,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Because the same footwork that may have been a walk when we played
Right.
is now a Euro step.
Exactly.
It's now a step through, it's an up and under, whatever it is. So that's interesting that you speak to Hoop Group, and that's pretty cool that they have that program to be able to teach coaches.
Yes.
So now you're fully immersed into the Jayhawks, right? And you see that, okay, your uncle has brought you in, you got this group of kids. I'm assuming you start to get progressively better as you start to get more kids
Yes.
that are a little bit more talented.
Yes.
So at that point, do you see the vision of where it can go?
Yes, we saw the vision. Our very first trip was to the Super Showcase in Florida.
Is that the AAU Nationals or
It's run by the same people,
Yep.
but this one is just like some of the better teams in the country.
was it like 16s or something like that?
Yeah, we had 16s and 15s. We had
Okay,
2 groups.
got it.
But so I'm coaching 16s at the time. My uncle's coaching 15s. We walk in the gym. We thought we were, good size, 6'6", 6'5". We had Bryce Jones, Weldon Irvine, and some other guys, some really good basketball players that are doing some good things now. And we go down there and we're playing Yamka at the time.
Yes.
So Yamka at the time was the YMCA from Memphis, loaded.
Right.
They walk out 6'11", 6'10", 6'6".
Is the point guard 6'6"?
Yes, and 16U. And they
Right,
you know
right.
what I mean? So we leave that, kept our heads up, did really well. We lost that game, but we played well throughout the entire thing. So at
Right.
the end of the summer, my uncle's like, listen, man, we did well, man. Let's really do this. You know what I mean? Let's really get to it and start, getting out, talking to kids, getting our brand out, building our brand. And we ended up doing that. And then we ended up Chuck Flood. Chuck Flood was Mr. New York that year. Bryce Jones was always a staple for our program. He was the first city kid outside of the Queens kids to say, yo, I'm gonna go mess with them.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Armando Dunn, who ended up going to Bard, he played at Boys and Girls. Neneo Matacole, who went to, I think it was Binghamton, he's gonna be a doctor now, 6'7". Marcus Solomon, 6'5", he works for Chase as a private banker. These kids are really
But these are the foundationary kids that actually got you guys to the ascend, to be able to get to the point where we know the Jayhawks.
Yes, Chris Brady went to Monmouth. He's playing professionally, played for Puerto Rico's national team. Emil Blackman, Mark Jackson's nephew, one of the best players ever to come out of New York, out of Long Island, Half Hollow Hills East. We just kept bringing them in and kept growing them and doing some really, really good things.
So you've had all of these kids with the Jayhawks that have had this success, and obviously it's great to hear that these kids have gone on and took that foundation and done great things with it. So how do you guys get to the point where you're now in bed with Adidas and they're saying, hey, we want you to be a Spartan team? Was that like a signature moment for the program?
It was an amazing moment, and I think it really came from before the Adidas thing. The guys that really transitioned us, Hamdou Diallo, Mamadou Diarra, they were two of the highest ranked players in the entire country, and they stuck. They were like, yo, this is what we're doing. You know, this is where we're going to be. At that time, we were with Under Armour, right? We were Under Armour for 1 year, and then we switched over to Adidas. Now, Jaheim Cornwall, Mamadou, Charles Manning, Chris Kellogg, these guys are high-level kids that wanted to play in our program, and they helped grow the brand, right? The two, like I said, the ones that were really in the forefront of that were Hamdou Diallo and Mamadou Diarra.
So sorry to interrupt. You find now that kids are switching programs, they're playing hopscotch, right?
Yeah.
To hear when they, and to be able to keep those level of kids, we know how important that is for the sponsor program, because they want the top kids in their stuff.
Right.
And they want to be able to have that talent on their platform. So now you get the recruitable athletes, and the coaches are going to gravitate and swarm towards the top level kids. So if you get a kid that's arguably top 5, top 10 in the country, McDonald's All-American level, they're salivating.
Yes.
So now if you're the person who is bringing these kids to the table, at the end of the day, that gives you leverage to be able to say.
At the time, we were just a stronger program. We had a good opportunity that presented itself. A lot of people supporting us and pushing us, and the Under Armour thing came about. Hamdou ended up graduating number 11 in the country. He was number 11 in the country at the end of his junior year with us, or at the end of his sophomore year with us, which is big because he came from nowhere and no one believed that he was that good. Mamadou, same thing, and he ended up being a top 100 kid and committing to UConn. Hami, as you know, went to Kentucky. But there were so many kids that were so good, but because of those two, everyone else was like, we're going to go mess with them, and how we built
Success breeds success.
You know, we had Roberto Diaz, big part of our program, big community guy, gave me a lot of lessons. And there's so many people that you could say, but those kids and that guy and my uncle, they really helped us, you know, get to a different type of platform.
So now you guys are perennially one of the top teams in the country.
Right.
Really big on the gauntlet with the Adidas Gold. So now it's a different fight.
Yes.
It's sustainability to follow up with and be as good as or better than the year prior.
Right. Adidas gives us an amazing platform because with the leadership and everything that they're trying to build, what we are is exactly what the vision is.
It's aligned.
Right. So our vision is you want basketball players that can really play, right? You want basketball players who can get to a certain level, right? But that doesn't mean you leave the other ones behind, right? And it also allows for us, because of Adidas giving us that platform, to be heavy in the community, to be entrenched in the community, to ingratiate community. Everything we do is about community, so it allows for us to be in that, and then for them to believe in us, and for those young men and those families to say, that's the program that I want my son to play in, and that's where I want my son to play.
And credibility.
Right.
You know what I mean? That affiliation, you know, kids are, this is the number one question I get. Where y'all playing at? What circuit you on?
Right.
Like, so if you're not on a circuit, that almost makes it seem as if there's no validation to the program. So you make, I'm just saying from a perspective of a person who's not knowledgeable about a program. So it almost gives you a leg up to be able to say, we're Under Armour, we're Nike, we're Adidas, because that's the first conversation you can get past.
Right.
So sometimes you would want a parent to say, or a kid to say, hey, what's your graduation rate in terms of kids that go to college? You know, what do you guys do academically to support the kids? Are you doing community-based stuff? So the conversation is so basketball heavy.
Yes.
I think that somewhere along the line, we have to find people to swing the pendulum to say, are we developing young men, or are we just developing basketball?
Right, and our motto is build men, right? That's what our mantra is, build men, right? So we've been able to change that narrative a little bit, and we'll continue to change it. So we change it in our fiefdom, and it will spread out. So we've been able to change that a little bit. I do think that people should become a little bit more knowledgeable about the programs that they're going to, regardless of sneaker, right? What do you do in the community? Like we put up with something this year. Our 17U graduating class 2020 had a GPA of 3.4, right? Cumulative, and an SAT average of 1130 or something like that. And everyone's like, no programs ever put that out. Well, that's what we want to do. We want to be a little bit different, continue to build high-level basketball players, continue to build men, and just build a little bit different kind of culture around us, which will go out.
So now, as you talk about that, what does the future of the Jayhawks look like? I know you guys are doing a bunch of stuff in the community, you know, events. The Collision is a big event that you guys do in the summertime. Very well run, a lot of competition. Obviously, the comedy show.
Yeah,
just stepping outside the box, man.
Yeah, it's big time stuff. That other stuff is the Jayhawks comedy show is our 10th year anniversary. I think that's going to be amazing. It's in the West Side Comedy Club, the same day that my partners and I are running the New York Top 100. So we've been able to diversify our portfolio because
the Jayhawks All-Star weekend, man.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's a good weekend for us to kick off the 10 year. But Justin Bennett, Andrew Metz, my brother Teddy Mitchell, we've been able to really like diversify our portfolio and build certain things. Like the Collision has no affiliation with sneaker or AAU, but it's been huge. 60 teams last year, and every single sneaker company and circuit has played in that. So last year we had pretty much every single AAU team in the area play in that event.
That's unique, and I've been speaking to some people about the history of the Golden Hoops and recreating that entity. And you know, I've reached out to you about trying to get the area's top teams together under one roof, no sneaker affiliation, and being able to just compete.
Exactly.
And then there's camaraderie, there's fellowship, there's building New York City basketball regardless of who you're playing for or with.
Right.
So, you know, that's, you know, obviously a goal and a topic that we'll talk more about, obviously, in the near future. So I want to go back to the beginning for a quick second, so have a little fun with it.
Yeah.
So, favorite player you've ever coached?
Man.
It's always a tough one for coaches. It's like separating those guys that were just...
I'll say this. I don't know if I necessarily had a favorite because they've all taught me different lessons. But I felt like I've grown the most from the transition of Bryce Jones, who's playing overseas now, boys and girls, to Hamadou and Mamadou. I feel like those guys taught me like a lot about how to deal with kids and things like that.
So let me ask you this. Toughest situation that you've been in as a coach?
Discipline. Trying to keep your word and discipline young men and make
win some basketball games.
Yes, that's a very difficult situation.
It's a slippery slope because you want to maintain the integrity of who you are and what the program stands for, and you're playing against Expressions Elite in a big tournament, right?
We've had issues and we've had to discipline, but I think the most important part was being able to make them understand consequence and grow, and so they don't do it again. I'm okay with taking a little bit of a step back if we need to in regards to that, but I think that's probably the hardest part in this. But yeah, aside from that.
What's fun for you about doing this?
Everything. You have no idea. Like, I absolutely love waking up in the morning, speaking to our kids, speaking to colleges about those kids, talking to them about their academics, checking on them, making sure that they can not make certain mistakes. Like, this is fun to me. I have my 10-year-old daughter, making sure she's good. Like, being able to literally change a young man's life because of my presence and let them shine is probably the best thing ever.
What does the story look like when it's all said and done for you and the Jayhawks?
Just change, like community and culture change. Like, I'm really big on it. I think some people think it's disingenuous because we don't really, that message has not changed. It's been the same message. So at this point now, that should be what people see us as, like community changers, culture changers, and just growth.
So what do people make the biggest misconception about J. David? What do they think they know that they don't know?
I'm not sure. I think most people, you know, because you're in this arena, would quite possibly say that he's a basketball guy. You know, I'm cool with being a basketball guy, but I have 2 degrees. Math and science associates, and I have a biology bachelor's. You know what I'm saying? Like I was in PA school, graduated. I can do performing surgery as opposed to serving the community.
Right.
So I think that they forget that there's a whole nother piece of you. You know what I'm saying? That
I think it gets engulfed because of the success.
yeah.
And sometimes in a competitive atmosphere, what we work in terms of youth basketball and basketball at this highest level, sometimes you can overlook the person
Right.
and see the businessman or see the competitor and not see who you are. So explain to the people
Right.
who Jay David is.
Just a regular kid, man. Regular kid who had really good breaks. You know, I had really good parents. My mother made a vow the streets would not get me, and I think that because of them, I'm a pretty decently well-rounded person who wants to give back, who loves basketball, and I tell it like it is. And so I'm not. When I speak to you, you know I'm not lying to you.
Right.
I'm going to speak to you in a way that you understand the truth. Never make you feel belittled in any way, but I'm going to make you understand like, yo, this is what it is. Go from there.
Jay David, New York Jayhawks.
Thank you, man.
Amazing story. Wish you continued success. Signing out, bottom to the top, E. Jones. Jay David.
Jay David, New York Jayhawks. This is Jay David. You're watching Bottom of the Top Hoops, New York Jayhawks.